Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, whatever you are. So today we are here to talk a little bit about remote work that is started on the pandemic or with the pandemic, but many people, even us, Webera, we've been doing since longer time. In a way, Webera was born out of the remote work. We didn't want to have people coming to our office and things like that. We are a cloud-based consulting company. There's no sense in us to go to our office to access any server, to do anything like this. We do have meetings together sometimes over the year, but most of the work is doing remotely, so we try to adapt as most of those things. The idea here is to talk a little bit about things that most of us learn when they move to an office work, and they're not so clear when you're working remotely. As an example, we have this office space which have several benefits because they impose some habits that we cannot really have this on a remote work. Besides like sitting in a place on a keyboard and screen in front of you, the other things around you, unless you have the open camera, they don't really matter. The idea here is to talk about a little bit of those things, the behaviors that we have or the habits that we have to evolve or create or have to be a successful remote worker. The idea here is to share some of these learnings that we had across all these years doing remote work. Some of these good habits that people doing remote work have to evolve. Good habits that every remote worker should have, or at least try to have in the best way. Let's start with office work, right? We, as all we know, we are remote workers, but first, most of us at this age start working in an office. Working in an office, there are several benefits that can help us to develop good habits on behaviors and the routines that we have by just being in a place. There's physical limitations on an office that force us to have some kind of better behaviors, if you want to say like that, that can help us to work together. So the idea here is explore some of those things and also bring some of the ideas that we as a company develop internally on how to better behave, if you say, in a remote work setup. So let's start with, there is a door. In an office space, we have a door, and that is one of the most important things that forces us to change our behavior. When you enter the door of the office, it's easy. You are in the workspace. So now, in your home, you don't have a door that you cross and you are working. Unless you have a separate office and all those things, but even though you're not really, because you're like in your kitchen, very close. There is your TV, your sofa that you were just watching probably Netflix or something. So it doesn't have that break as a door in the office has. There is a hallway. Yeah, don't scream. Don't scream in the hallways. People look at you differently if you do that. So this is another example of a physical barrier or a physical feature of the office which provokes you to do things differently. Like you're not going to run to your hallway, you're not going to, I don't know, do strange things in the hallway. You have to follow the walls to go to home. Not that you do follow the walls at your home, but at your home you can put whatever picture you want. In the office is not that easy, right? So how about the meeting room? That is another thing, right? You cannot go to the meeting room in an office wearing pajamas, well, unless it's pajama day in your company, but like normally wouldn't do that. So there are several limitations that the office space creates in a meeting room. Everybody can see each other, you can see expressions. There's no way like someone to use something in the face to hide expressions or not looking, or if you look at your phone with your camera closed, it's like there's no way. So there's no camera closed in the meeting room, physical meeting room. And then there is the desk, the old and good desk. It's like I did a joke here, I can see you, right? You can see other people too. You can see if people are screaming, if they are having a bad day because they're, or if they are laughing about a joke or something. There's no mute button. There's no, everything is, and then someone can pass behind you and see your screen. There are several things in this office space that changes what your behavior will be, right? So there's, and provoke habits on you. You don't leave a messy desktop or something like that. You don't leave your coffee mug there for several days. You don't, so there's many things that it creates on you. But one of the things that I can tell you is that office spaces are better for collaboration. So that's really a challenge in remote work. All those lack of privacy and things that I talked before, still good for collaboration. Of course, nowadays when we are trying to do this more remotely, we end up working in the same room in the office and just sharing screens because we are used to when we go to office, which is good in a way because we now don't need to sit in front of the same computer as we used to do in the past. But the idea of having a whiteboard, even with new tools, Miro, ScullyDraw, and many other whiteboard tools that we have those days, I think the feeling of seeing someone drawing something and you be blocked by that person, so you can pay attention more to what's happening and not just overtake the presentation or something, or do something on the side when you're remote work. It kind of helps us to concentrate more on the others. So the feedback is better. But still, we can try to improve this on remote work by developing some good habits on a remote set, and soon we'll talk about them. And of course, the best part of remote work is the traffic, right? We can talk about remote work without talking about the commute, the everyday commute, how much time we lose on driving like an ant from one place to another to just express ourselves, just talk to each other. Then, in the case of Roberta, as I mentioned before, we always designed the company to be a remote work first company, but most of the world it started with the pandemic, right? The pandemic forced many companies to do remote work. Of course, we are not the only one. There are many companies out there that they're trying to do remote work before. But the pandemic actually created the real need. And then if you look at these remote work strategies of different companies, so here is some ideas that we use internally that we're trying to document, and this is part of a presentation that I gave to the team a couple weeks ago on the habits, as I mentioned, or behaviors that you can try to develop and enforce with your team so they can be a little bit more productive and conscious about the others in a remote work setup. So the first thing, we say be aware. It's a habit that the idea is you have to create a dedicated space in a quiet and comfortable location that minimize your distractions and maximize your productivity. Just try to simulate the door at some way. Like if you have a chair where you work with, that is your work time. If the workplace, that is like your door. When you're sitting there, people at your home and even kids can know that you are working. And if you're standing, you are not working. Or the TV, if the TV is off, is you working? Or if the something, you have to create some habit that sets your, I'm working. And could be something different, put a headphone, or because working from anywhere you can do some like those things of, I mean, wearing the headset or the music or something. So be aware of creating this space or logical, virtual or physical space that defines that you are working. So the next one is create a routine or have a routine. The idea here is, and the example is brush your teeth, which is a routine for everyone, is develop a daily routine and stick to it. Maintain a sense of structure and organization. So if you work a time of the day, it could be different times, like you can work from 8 to noon and then 6 p.m. to midnight. I don't know. You have your schedule, an example. But stick to that routine. That helps you to be productive. That trains your brain to be productive at that time of the day. It creates less friction in your day. So in a way, you be more aware that you're working. Your brain is like, oh, I have to do this now. And it's not a bad thing. So our brain likes to not be forced to do things in different times. So if you have a routine, it will be better for you. It will be better for your productivity. And in a remote work, it definitely will help you to be more productive. Communication. So you have to be effective on the way that you communicate, because we don't have the benefits. There is several books on remote working, and many of them, they talk about people really are good at work remotely. And since not everyone is in the same place all the time, or not everyone has the same routine of work, which is good, but still you have to be able to communicate. So if you're not in a meeting, if you're not in a virtual meeting room, you have to write most of your time. So it's important to write. On the other hand, if you are in a meeting room setup, open your camera. It's good. So it's good to people see your face, your expressions, your eyes, what they are doing. It's part of human communication. So use the tools, the video, the audio. Those days you can record your call, you can record your audio, you can record your video and send to people. You can see people's video. So consume the internal communication. Use the internal data. Use the internal tools. At Roberta, we try to reduce the amount of tools that we use to communicate, so we don't stress people with the number of tools. Like we used to have Slack and Google Chat and all those things. Most of our communication those days is Google Chat. We extensively use Notion because it's easier to connect information, easier than Google Drive or Office, those things. I think those companies are trying to be more like Notion and other tools of that nature. But having a structured way to share information is also part of the new management of remote teams. Use collaboration and communication like video, projects, tools, stay connected and collaborate with your members. Communicate. That's a very important part of your work after the migration to remote work. One of the things that I try to create at Roberta, and many companies do that, is, okay, what is collaboration? Define collaboration for me. And people say those things, how and that. And so at Roberta, this is a screenshot of our guideline on collaboration inside of our Notion page in our internal database. Define collaboration for your company. What does it mean to collaborate? And try to find things that people have to do. Like, these are important collaboration touches. Like, you have to define, like, working together. We support people doing pair meetings just to work on some problem. One important thing that we talk is like updating issues and bug reports. Go back again to the writing thing. We need to people like to write. And other things are very good, like blameless problem solving. When you are in a meeting trying to solve a problem and you start to blame someone because what they did, dude, write off. This is not going to help to fix the problem. If you are discussing the aftermath, what happened, who did what, again, it's a very hard thing to do, but try not to blame anyone because of what happened. In a company, it's very hard to be only one person's fault. It's like a system. Many people have to fail and not doing their job till something go down. So be mindful about this blameless problem solve. And it's part of collaboration, because if you start to blame people about what happened, they will take longer to bring you problems. They will only bring you problems when they are out of control or it's too late. So the no aggravation thing is also very important. And last one but not least is like open your camera. We had several experiences where it's like you have to open your camera. That is a very important thing to be working a remote setup. It's also important to take breaks. We don't want to have people who be sitting in an office chair in their house, locked in the basement, working 24/7. That is not the idea. So the idea is, as part of your routine, take breaks. Your brain also likes of breaks. So just as important as have a routine to enter in your work, take breaks in your office space. You have breaks. We have a small bot that set up coffees between people so they can talk about other things. We also have, in our case, like once a week, every Friday, we have our team have a discussion about different topics. We invite people from outside. So it's not a break that we do play video games. I don't think it's a good idea to, because normal video games are so addictive that you take your brain out and you'll be hard to get back to work. But go talk with someone about a different subject. Try to do some errands during the day and get back to work. It's good. Like changing the brain from a screen to another screen is not good. Try to do something different than look at the screen. That is part of the break too. The other important thing about remote work is that since people are not really looking at what you are doing or how you are doing or have all the visibility of who you're talking to, unless you try to talk on channels like all the time, like we recommend on our guidelines, it's pretty hard to people see these different pieces of work that you're doing. So you have to be mindful about what people ask and what the priorities of those things are. So prioritize your workload and focus on the most important tasks first. We usually have, like internally in any systems of task project management, you have a priority there, right? Although we should have only one priority, but there's like critical, high, medium, low. And like the next thing that we say to people, okay, what you do next if like you have two critical tasks? As a simple one, look one is the oldest. The oldest with same priority you have to do first because it's late. Utilize those kinds of small rules that you can create to prioritize your things and document them so people will be aware that like, okay, you'll be working on the high priority task, which is the oldest, which is completely reasonable, unless someone has a production error or something. That's another thing that can change priorities. But if everybody is aware of what prioritization rules that you use, it's also a fair game. Manage your time. And that is a book that we gave every collaborator at Roberta last year, I think. And I believe it's part of our onboarding. The basic thing about this book, if you like want to resume in one phrase, I would say how you define that you are being distracted. And the easiest way is it's to allocate the time to work on something. So if you are not doing the work that you're supposed to be working on, like in this case, I don't know, you set up some 2 hours of work in a bug. Then someone asks you something and then you go and talk to them. So the best way to plan your work is to define what work means. If you define what you're gonna work on that period of time, then everything else is a distraction. So it's a maybe hard way to do, but it's a way. So it's a clear way to be not distracted. And if you adopt those things and becomes part of your routine, you end up not suffering because of this. It's a simple thing. You have to work for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 maybe, I don't know. Depends on the country you are or the culture you have. You have different time zones and things like that. You work in different times. But if you are aware of those things, that means distraction or distraction, you'll be much happier, for sure. That's the whole thing. And your brain will be happier. because it knows the limits and the things that should be doing, should not be doing. So there's no suffering. I think that's a great book. If you have time to read it, I recommend. The other habit that we recommend is to be engaged. In our case, it's like stay engaged and motivated by setting goals and regularly reviewing your progress. But always starts with motivation. And motivation is part of our values actually. It's not that something that we believe that's a cause of anything. Motivation doesn't cause anything. In this setup of remote working and with more knowledge people where the important thing that we do is our knowledge, we don't need, our brain don't need to be when demotivated to do a code. Like if we are developer, we'll have fun coding. So the idea here is that you start to work on something and then the motivation will come because our brains they love solving problems. So they love feel important. So the idea here is just start to do the work and the motivation will appear. So I know that you may say to me like, okay, now you need to be motivated first, so then you have the work done. Like, just, I think there's a book for 5-second rules or something like that. Just, oh, I have to do this, start doing. Don't need to wait thing. And then the motivation will come. So be engaged, work at your time, and motivation will. So seek guidance is another very important habit that you have to develop when remote working. Since like remote workers are more knowledge workers, they tend to work by themselves. It's important to define like some checkpoints with you that you are in trouble, or if you see someone like in a stand-up meeting or something repeating the same task that they are working on, and you see it shouldn't take that much of time. So try to help also. So seek support and guidance from your team members if you need help or have any concerns. Because you may have like one meeting a day or something like that. And if you are struggling with a problem, if you don't tell people, we think that you're fine. So be aware of this. It's an important thing. Don't be stuck in the problems. So seek guidance. The other important thing on remote working is be flexible. So flexibility in adapting to changes, circumstances, and priorities is very important as any job. As we were discussing the other day on our internal organizational structure, the several levels of flexibility that you have to have from a junior to expert guy, right? So when you see a junior, it has to be flexible what kind of the work they have to do. An example, oh, you might be a front-end developer, but now you need to learn some bash script thing to solve your problem to be faster. So don't suffer because you have to learn something that's not HTML and CSS. It's just something that is good for you. So learn it. So that's the junior perspective. On the other hand, when you are an expert, you have to be flexible in a different way. You not just have to answer or do something that is not your thing, but maybe you have to select to do that thing. Like you see something that maybe you are a back-end developer or something, and there's an error on the front end. And you say, oh, I know how to fix that. And you go and fix. And now you're looking from the perspective of the client or the user. So you are aware of the user, you are aware of more scenarios than a junior person. So you select to do something because you are aware and you are more senior. So be flexible. Don't be like, oh, I don't do that or don't do this. I know there's a limit for this, right? You don't want to do accounting or something like that. But it's important to be flexible. That was a funny picture. I select this picture because I can't think about any other animal more independent than a cat. They choose if they give you a chance to pet them. They choose if they not want to give a chance if you pet them. In this case, the dog can try to do whatever he wants with the cat. If the cat doesn't want to play with the dog, yeah, the dog will not have his day. It will be like boring cat. He doesn't want to play. But yeah, work independently and own your task, accountable. So if you tell someone that you're gonna do something, go and do. If you have a problem in doing, tell people, I'm having problem to doing this. Can you help? Go back to seek guidance. But on your sheet, it was like, you have to, if there is a name on your task, figure out how to execute. If you don't have the knowledge, tell people, I need to learn this, I need more time. If you figure out faster, great. That's awesome. So tell people, I finish. So people can either validate your work and see if it's finished, or give you more work, or you can help other people that are stuck. So, and be productive. Checkbox, okay? But be independent in the way that cats are. If that's a good update. You see, you just changed the year, right? And the update here is be updated. Keep updated. Be able to stay up to date with the industry best practices and trends. If you are in a remote work, if you don't follow what's happening with your business, with your company, with things around you, you may have trouble to understand why the company is doing that or the other things, or why someone in your team is being more successful than you. So our culture is changing fast, very fast. So it's an important thing to keep up to date. So be aware of this. And here, last but not least, here's the Roberta team. We were doing one of our meetings and they took a screenshot. So here we are, a remote company working and growing. We can do this. There are some issues, but we can still improve. So here we are. This is our team at Roberta. We are working remotely from many places. And I think it works. We're growing and we're learning from this. And that's this video I want to share with you a little bit about what we recommend you to follow. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you in another presentation soon. We're starting to do these short videos trying to share a little bit of our culture, internal culture, and how we are developing this. Not only to try to show people us what we are inside, so it's easy to us to hire new teammates, but also to improve the whole ecosystem of business that are working remotely now. I hope you enjoy, and please let me know. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Zamboni, or Instagram, or at Joe Zamboni, I think, and Joe Zamboni account too. But thank you. Enjoy. Good day. Night.